6th spot, but a little farther up the standings, the Lakers. They're right in the mix, a game and a half out of second. And last night, the Lake Show continued. LeBron, Luka hosting Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves in this one. So in the first quarter here, the Lakers up by 3. Perk, LeBron James launches from the logo.
He called it. He called it.
Banks open.
Yeah, he called it.
Deep 3 from LeBron, and then driving through traffic here. But keep an eye on Jared Vanderbilt and Anthony Edwards after the play here. As the quarter came to a close, Edwards, Vanderbilt, they exchanged some words. There was some shoving. Both players, they were issued double technicals, which offset, so the Lakers lead 33-17 after the first. We're in the third now. Watch Anthony Edwards here. He drives and falls to the ground. A whistle is blown. Edwards is called for a technical foul. That's his second of the game, which gets him ejected from this contest, right? Edwards, he falls on the play. He starts talking to officials, which leads to the technical foul, and then he tosses the game ball into the stands. It is Edwards' 16th tech of the season, so he will be suspended. The league just announced moments ago for this next game. LeBron James, though, he continues right here, Brian.
33 points, 17 rebounds, 6 assists, ho-hum.
Yeah, he became the first player in NBA history at age 40 or older with 25.5 straight games. In the fourth quarter here, Shanae, the Lakers lead. This is what's so unfortunate about the suspension is Minnesota got back in this.
They did, and then you got prayers answered by Luka Doncic, who did not shoot the ball well. He is struggling with his legs, but when it comes to one-legged threes, say less right there.
Yeah, he shot 10 for 40 on threes as a Laker so far. 1 of 9 for threes last night, but he's able to get that one to go.
He's got to be better. Yeah, he's got to be better. He's had too many outbursts. I think a lot of them are deserved. They're going to miss some calls from time to time, for sure. So he's got to be better, and we've been talking to him about it, and so it's on him.
Okay, so Chris Finch talking there about Anthony Edwards' suspension, about the technical fouls that he's racking up, and in a lot of ways, as much as we were talking about Luka Doncic's threes, this was the story of the game, Brian.
Yeah, look, he's pretty much been suspended for a game and a half because he got thrown out in the third quarter of this game, and even if the 14th or the 16th tech was soft, he's got another 15 of them. And only February's not even done yet, and now he's already suspended. Every other tech now, he will get suspended again.
There's 2 more and then get suspended. 2 more and then get suspended.
That's right. And, his fines for this year are now going to surpass $500,000 with his game check that he's going to pay. The league was nice enough. They didn't announce a fine for throwing the ball in the stands like he did right here. And look, he is an excellent player. He is absolutely the heart of the Timberwolves, but he's got to be available to them. They're now playing a second night of a back-to-back without 3 starters in Salt Lake City. He's hurt them last night. He's hurt them tonight. Not acceptable for Ant Edwards. He's got so much going for him. He's got to control his emotions better.
First things first, Ant Edwards is having a sensational season. He's averaging 27 points per game. He's actually made more threes than Steph Curry. He leads the NBA in made threes. But I do think we're seeing the pressure of the leadership that he's trying to assume hit him, because this is a team that really, without Karl-Anthony Towns, they're relying on him more and more for offense. We heard him complain about the double teams. He's trying to navigate that. You watch the Lakers game, the physicality was bothering him. I think it's his response to those things, put more pressure on him. No Karl-Anthony Towns, no Julius Randle, and I'm just equating the two, just saying that he has more on his shoulders than ever before, and he's trying to navigate how to do that the best way possible. But it's harder now for him, and I feel like that's the grace I give him in this, but he has to be better. They need him on the floor now more than ever before.
Well, look, he's still young, and the most important thing is that he has to find the balance, right? And it starts with Coach Finch. I heard him go on this rant after they beat OKC about the Minnesota Timberwolves not getting calls and, complaining about SGA getting calls, and everything is earned and not given. I played with so many Hall of Famers. I call myself a groupie at times. I played with so many Hall of Famers. Well, Elle called me a wag. She said,
a wag.
More credit,
you said you got a ring, you're a wag.
So, but when I think about it, I'm like, okay, all the Hall of Famers that I played with, all of them earned the right to get to the point where they had a personal relationship with the ref, so the tolerance level was different. Anthony Edwards is growing into that. He's not the only person that's dealing with that type of issue.
But it took them to age 30 to get to that.
It did, right? Yeah. But we saw this. We're still witnessing Luka go through this, right?
Yeah.
The complaining with the officials, and certain things that all-star stars and superstars get away with, other players can't. I think it's just a good learning process for Anthony Edwards. He will respond in great fashion. He will come back better.
Well, Luka Doncic, yes, and when he was going through all of that, we talked about it pretty constantly of him needing to maybe take a little bit of a different approach with officials. Anthony Edwards now suspended for this game against Utah. To your point, Brian, they got Dante DiVincenzo back in this game last night, but they're still without Rudy Gobert. They're still without Julius Randle, and so they're really going to feel Anthony Edwards not being there. On the flip side of this game, though, this was LeBron James' 161st career game, leading his team outright in points and rebounds, assists, the most in NBA history. But it's what he said about Anthony Edwards not wanting to maybe be the face of the league after the game that has the entire basketball world talking.
I mean, Channing Frye said it the other day too. Like, I mean, it's unfortunate, but like, I don't know. Why do you want to be the face of a league when all the people that that cover our game and talk about our game on a day-to-day basis, everybody.
Okay, so everybody has had a reaction to this. Perk, what's yours?
Well, I mean, look, Michael Jordan went through it, right? Michael Jordan, when he was dealing with the death of his daddy, did you see all the newspaper articles that were out about him, the stories that were out? When he was playing against the New York Knicks, did you see the gambling stories that was out? We didn't have social media, but he went through it. Kobe Bryant had his share of times that he went through it. I mean, look, I get what LeBron is saying. My only problem with LeBron saying this is that put an address on it. Put an address on it. Don't just leave it broad. Say who you speaking to. Because it can't be us, because we highlight him every single day, even when he's not playing. We make sure we appreciate his greatness every single day. So if you're talking to other people outside of the basketball world, like the hockey player that worked for our network, what's his name?
PK Subban.
Right, who contradicted himself throughout the whole time he was ranting about the NBA, claiming that, the NBA is basically soft and all this, but he don't watch much of the NBA, so how can you critique it? I think a lot of people have gotten too comfortable when it comes down to critiquing and criticizing our game and taking it a step further than it should be. That's the part why I think LeBron was addressing. My only problem with that statement is put an address on who you talking to.
Well, and that's sort of what you were saying earlier, Brian, that I agree with. I do think that as a whole, whenever things like this happen, it's always a time for all of us to pause, to be able to look in and say, okay, how can we be better? And players as well. And I think that what you said on Get Up this morning, just about maybe the discourse around the NBA at times swinging away from appreciating the greatness of what we see is a valid criticism.
Yeah, so probably after Michael Jordan, no one has ever given more adulation in the history of the sport than LeBron.
Yeah.
So, of course, he's been appreciated, and we still appreciate him, absolutely. We're so happy that he has been able to play 22 years. But it is also true that I think he is correct that we are a little bit out of balance. And I think the key word here is balance. You don't want all love and you don't want all hate. What you want is a combination that enriches the appreciation of the sport. And so that's what we strive for. And I think at times in our history we have done it. Right now, I would agree with LeBron and others that we are out of balance and that from a night-to-night basis, we should spend more of our time. And I'm not just talking about people on television, the fan base in general, because I see social media, I see what's out there. I think we should appreciate a little bit more the greatness of the players. Literally every day there's greatness in this NBA, and it should be celebrated every day. And we should criticize people like Ann Edwards for being suspended ridiculously. And we can, credit
balance.
Wonderful performances like Zion Williamson having his first triple-double last night.
You're promoting later in the show. We're getting to that.
Look, when I see this conversation, it just reminds me to that saying, comparison is the thief of joy. And oftentimes when we talk about LeBron James, we're comparing him, and it robs your joy because you're comparing him to someone that is flawless in some ways in Michael Jordan. That stature, I think a lot of people have already decided he will never be that, which means he is always less than. And to me, that is difficult when your job is to also celebrate what he's doing. Now, we do celebrate a lot of LeBron James, but I think there's a bigger picture here. It's more so about like the coverage, as Wendy says, like we can do better in trying to talk about specific things that uplift the game. So I think it's a little bit more nuanced than what people think.
Yeah, and then players got to realize, too, that they have to adjust. We're in 2025. Nothing is normal. Nothing is how it used to be back in the day. From the basketball world to the real world, we have to adjust. They have to adjust. It wasn't social media back then.
But
It's social media now.
What I found fascinating is that we're talking about this a year removed from when we were comparing Anthony Edwards to Michael Jordan. And remember, Anthony Edwards was like, slow your roll. And ever since then, I think he's sort of run away from that discussion because he knows what that brings. It brings criticism. And who knows that better than anybody else? LeBron James. He dealt with 22 years of those criticisms. But it helped him. He's a billionaire, but at the same time, the narratives are things that he can't escape.
Well, and I think in all of this, it was in our interview, in our conversation, when Ant said, okay, I maybe don't want to be compared to Michael Jordan.
He will respond in great fashion. He will come back better.
Well, Luka Doncic, yes, and when he was going through all of that, we talked about it pretty constantly of him needing to maybe take a little bit of a different approach with officials. Anthony Edwards now suspended for this game against Utah. To your point, Brian, they got Dante DiVincenzo back in this game last night, but they're still without Rudy Gobert. They're still without Julius Randle, and so they're really going to feel Anthony Edwards not being there. On the flip side of this game, though, this was LeBron James' 161st career game, leading his team outright in points and rebounds, assists, the most in NBA history. But it's what he said about Anthony Edwards not wanting to maybe be the face of the league after the game that has the entire basketball world talking.
I mean, Channing Frye said it the other day too. Like, I mean, it's unfortunate, but like, I don't know. Why do you want to be the face of a league when all the people?
The Lakers remain firmly in the mix for a top 6 spot in the Western Conference, but the battle at the top of the standings is heating up. Just a game and a half separates them from the second seed, and last night they made their presence felt once again. In a marquee matchup, the Lakers squared off against Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks, with Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves in town. From the opening tip, the energy was palpable, and LeBron James wasted no time making a statement. Early in the first quarter, with the Lakers up by 3, he pulled up from the logo. Pure confidence, pure precision. He called it, he knew it, and he delivered. Moments later, slashing through traffic, LeBron set the tone. But it wasn't just about him. Tensions flared as Jared Vanderbilt and Anthony Edwards exchanged words after quarter ended, leading to double technicals for both players. The Lakers, however, stayed in control, leading 33-17 after 1. As the game progressed, controversy took center stage. In the third quarter, Edwards drove into the lane, took a hard fall, and immediately voiced his frustration to the officials. The result? A technical foul, his second of the night, leading to his ejection. But what followed escalated things further. Frustrated, Edwards tossed a game ball into the stands, sealing his fate. That marked his 16th technical foul of the season, triggering an automatic suspension for the Timberwolves' next game. It's a costly absence for Minnesota, a team already navigating challenges without key pieces in the lineup. For Edwards, the suspension isn't just a one-game setback. It's part of a troubling trend. He's now at risk of future suspensions every other technical foul, and his season fines are set to surpass $500,000. Despite his brilliance, his availability is becoming a growing concern for a Timberwolves squad fighting for positioning in the brutal Western Conference. Meanwhile, LeBron James continued to defy logic. At 39 years old, he delivered yet another historic performance, finishing with 33 points, 17 rebounds, and 6 assists. In doing so, he became the first player in NBA history to record 5 straight 25-point games at age 40 or older. But even with LeBron's dominance, the Mavericks kept pushing. Luka Doncic, despite struggling from deep, shooting just 10 for 40 on threes against the Lakers this season, had his moment. Late in the fourth, with the shot clock winding down, he hoisted up a signature one-leg three-pointer. Bucket. Say what you want about his shooting struggles, but when it comes to those absurd off-balance threes, there's no one better. Post-game, Timberwolves head coach Chris Finch didn't hold back. He acknowledged Edwards' immense talent, but emphasized that he needs to be better. The outbursts, the complaints, it's a pattern that needs to be addressed. Finch wasn't making excuses. He was making it clear that Edwards is hurting his team. The Wolves were already without Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle, and now they have to face Utah on the second night of a back-to-back without their biggest offensive weapon. For Minnesota, this wasn't just about one game. It was about discipline, maturity, and leadership. And that's where the conversation took an even bigger turn. Beyond the game itself, it was LeBron James' post-game comments about the way to be in the face of the league that set the NBA world on fire. LeBron didn't mince words, questioning why any player would want that responsibility, given the scrutiny that comes with it. It was a candid reflection, one that resonated deeply across the league. The comparison was inevitable. Michael Jordan endured relentless criticism, from his battles with the Knicks to gambling controversies, even before the social media era. Kobe Bryant went through his own firestorm. And now, LeBron himself, despite 2 decades of dominance, still faces intense scrutiny. His message was clear. If you're going to critique, put a name on it. Don't generalize. Direct it where it belongs. That's exactly where Kendrick Perkins jumped in, backing LeBron's argument, but urging him to be specific. If the criticism is about media narratives, call it out directly. If it's about outside voices disrespecting the game, address it head-on. The conversation quickly turned to how the modern NBA is covered, and Brian Windhorst made a compelling point. The balance has shifted. The discourse surrounding the league often leans more toward criticism than appreciation. Of course, LeBron has received immense praise throughout his career, but in an era dominated by social media, the scales have tipped. Every night, there's greatness happening across the league, yet the conversations often revolve around what's wrong rather than what's remarkable. For Anthony Edwards, this debate extends beyond technical fouls and suspensions. It's about expectations. Just a year ago, he was being compared to Michael Jordan, a discussion that made him visibly uncomfortable. He shut it down then, and he's distanced himself from it ever since. He knows what comes with that level of hype, scrutiny, comparisons, and criticism. And no one understands that better than LeBron James, a player who has carried the weight of expectations for 22 years. Edwards is navigating that reality now, learning in real time what it means to be a franchise cornerstone in an unforgiving league. Ultimately, this game wasn't just about a Lakers win, an Edwards ejection, or a Luka highlight. It was a reflection of where the NBA stands today, on the court, in the media, and in the broader conversation about its stars. The talent level is higher than ever, but with that comes greater pressure, greater scrutiny, and a constant battle between appreciation and critique. The Timberwolves need Edwards to channel his fire in the right way. The Lakers, with LeBron still leading the charge, continue to defy time. And the league itself? It's evolving, just like its stars.